they win the NFC South.
Predicting the Bucs' 53-man roster. It is Monday. I wanted to make this video probably after the last preseason game, but I was on vacation out of state, so unable to do that. As of now, on Monday, just got off work. Literally the first thing I'm doing when I got home. Some things have already happened. Some cuts have already been made. Some people going on IR, all that stuff. So predicting / evaluating the Bucs 53-man roster, predicting who I think will make these final cuts, and evaluating the cuts that have already been made, any moves that have already happened. So that is what we're doing in this video. Let's go ahead and get started. Starting off with quarterbacks, very easy. Baker Mayfield, obviously the starter. Kyle Trask, obviously the backup. John Wolford will be going to the practice squad. Boom, boom, boom. Nice and easy. Just how you like it at that quarterback position. Next, going to running back here, you see they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can go ahead and cut DJ Williams. We can cut Ramon Jefferson, and then that leaves Rachaad White, obviously the starter, Bucky Irving, obviously the backup, and then Sean Tucker, Chase Edmonds. Chase Edmonds, the veteran, played last year, a lot of injuries, and hasn't done anything in training camp because he's continued to be injured. So we can go ahead and throw Sean Tucker in that spot as the third running back. 3 running backs is usually the ideal number there. And I mean, I like that room. It's a young room with Rachaad White as the leader going into that third year, which is, every time I say that, it just feels weird because for some reason it feels like Rachaad White has been here longer than that, but he's number 29. And then he was number 1 last year, and yeah, this is his third year. Yeah. I don't know why that messes with me. Continuing on offense, wide receiver, obviously Mike Evans, obviously Chris Godwin, obviously Jalen McMillan down here, Trey Palmer, of course. So that's your 3 starters right there is Evans, Godwin, McMillan. Trey Palmer will see some time, obviously, with that deep threat. I know he's had a ton of trouble recently catching the ball, which has caused a bunch of stir up with the fans, but I'm not necessarily too worried about it. I think his job, his role as that deep threat, as someone that has to make that safety secondary, respect that speed, push people off, maybe open up lanes for Chris Godwin in the slot coming across the middle, where safeties have to go deep to watch Palmer, whatever it may be. I think he's still fine in that role. But as a wide receiver 4, let's be honest, that's, despite whatever drops people are making a big deal out of, that's a really good wide receiver 4. Sterling Shepard was cut today. He will have a place on the practice squad. So that leaves 5 and 6. We're going to give 5. I'm giving 5 to Cameron Johnson. He's a guy that flashed for me when I went to training camp, and shortly thereafter that, he did end up getting injured and wasn't able to really play much, practice much, obviously. But I still think this team has trust in him, faith in him. He kind of can play that Devin Tompkins role, but I'd say better than Devin Tompkins, of course, which is why Tompkins is gone, and I think he will make the roster. The guy can fly. Anyone that has seen him in person, he looks fast on TV. If you've seen him in person, it's that type of speed. It is that type of speed. And with that last spot, we're going with someone who is, not necessarily this young, flashy guy, but the numbers, in preseason, he's been putting them up, and that's Cody Thompson. Really good game last week, and I think for that 6 wide receiver spot, it's solid. Do I think he'll keep it throughout the entire year? I'm not sure about that, because I do think when Raheem Jarrett, who they will be placing on IR due to his injury, when he comes back, there is going to be a push from Raheem Jarrett for that 6 wide receiver spot, and I can see him overtaking Cody Thompson for that 6 wide receiver spot. So I guess Cody Thompson with the asterisk, eventually Raheem Jarrett. Now on to tight ends, where is a little bit interesting because you're like 3 or 4. I think this is a pretty deep group, a pretty deep room. Cade Otton, who I like Cade Otton. I think he will have another solid year, probably his best year yet, if I'm going to predict how this plays out. I think he'll have his best year yet. Behind him, Payne Durham, who didn't get too much playing time last year, but I think is another good, solid tight end. Both of those guys I don't think will ever be like top 8 tight ends in the NFL. Cade Otton, I'd say ESPN, Bleacher Report, all these people probably have him around 18th ranked tight end in the NFL. I probably have him closer to like 12, 13. Do I think he'll ever get in that top 8? I don't think so. I don't think his potential is that high, but he does have a high floor. And you know what you're going to get at Cade Otton. He's clutch. We've seen him make plenty of clutch touchdowns. Solid hands. Not super fast, but catch the ball, run the routes, do what he has to do. Good enough blocker, like Cade Otton. Payne Durham, I think the verdict is still out on him. Like I said, not seeing him too much last year. In that third spot, I'm going Devin Culp, the Bucs' 7th round pick out of Washington. I think that speed just brings a whole different dynamic to that tight end room. Like I said, Cade Otton doesn't really have that speed. Devin Culp absolutely has that speed with that 4.47 40 time. And in that 4th spot, we're going Code Kieft. Just beast on special teams. Not really the, go out for a pass and catch it, score touchdowns type of tight end. But special teams, it's important. And you can win and lose games in special teams. I mean, right? Don't tell Pat McAfee that you can't. I have him on the 53, and I think Code Kieft deserves a spot. Next, let's move on to the offensive line, where there are some decisions to be made, obviously, with the offensive line having more people playing at one time. 5. Center, Graham Barton, going to be the starter there. Backup, Robert Hainsey. Boom. I think we're good there. They're the only 2 on the roster. Next, already been announced, Ben Bredesen will be the Bucs' starting left guard. Right guard will be Cody Mock, going into his 2nd season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that leaves us with a backup guard in need. And we are going to go with Elijah Klein, the Bucs' 6th round pick out of UTEP. I think he's been pretty solid, and showing that versatility throughout the preseason is really valuable, and Elijah Klein will be on this 53-man roster. Left tackle, right tackle, in my opinion, top 3 duo in the NFL. Tristan Wirfs, Luke Gedeke. Gotta have a backup. I believe that will be Mr. Justin down here. We've seen him have to come in at times. Does fine. Not someone you really want to be your starter, but solid backup, and I think he is a good locker room guy. He's been around in the locker room. Guys are friends with him. All good there. And then I will say Brandon Walton, another guy that has been on the team. Another guy knows what to expect, knows the locker room. I think we're pretty solid at those tackle spots. So 2 monster starters and 2 backups that, I mean, if we're being honest, we hope we don't have to see them play this season. So for the defensive line, it's kind of interesting how they label them here. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just combine defensive end and defensive tackles. So we know Kalijah Cansey, automatic. And where's Vita Vea? Automatic. Next, let's go, I think Greg Gaines. I think he's not my favorite guy on the roster, but I think they value him pretty highly as a backup nose tackle behind Vita Vea, so I think he makes the roster. Logan Hall, still looking for another step out of Logan Hall. He'll make the roster. I mean, Will Golston, getting up there in age, I gotta think that he's going to make the roster. Just veteran presence, knows the team, glue guy, locker room guy. I expect Will Golston to make the team. I'd probably say this is probably Will's last year, because he's not, I mean, he did play a good amount in the preseason. And he's definitely on the bubble. I mean, there's no doubting that. There's definitely some young guys pushing him. CJ Brewer, thought was pushing him. Ernest Brown, pushing him. Keep forgetting how to pronounce his name. Pushing him. No disrespect, but I don't want to mispronounce it. Out of those 3 guys, at the time that I'm recording this, I believe CJ Brewer has been cut. So I will assume that Ernest Brown will be that final guy to make this 53-man roster of our defensive linemen there. CJ Brewer, I thought was pretty impressive throughout training camp and throughout the preseason. I honestly had him over Ernest Brown, but I don't think it was too much of a difference. The Bucs end up going with Ernest Brown there. Cool with that. A guy that probably isn't going to see the field too often. We know Todd Bowles does like to rotate his defensive line. Still, I don't think we'll see him too often. And now let's go to this massive linebacker list because they combine edge rushers and middle linebackers together on ESPN here. So let's go middle linebacker. So obvious. There's your two starters there, KJ Britt, Levante David. Deloach has been cut, so FSU guy just didn't show enough there to make the team. Antonio Greer, my personal fan favorite. I went to USF. He went to USF, so that's my personal favorite. He has not yet been cut. Do I think he makes the team? I doubt it. Because those final two spots, obviously, Servassier Dennis. And then I'm going to go with J.J. Russell, a guy who did have to start, I believe, 1 or 2 games last year due to injury and held his own. So they have that trust in him. They've seen it happen during the regular season. So why would he not make that 4th spot? And then next for outside linebacker, I don't think there's too much debate here. Chris Braswell, 2nd-round pick, of course, making the team. Anthony Nelson, a guy who just doesn't get talked about at all, will make the team. Jose Ramirez, really excited for him, was on the practice squad all last season. I believe he will make the 53-man roster after this preseason, flashing as he did. Marquise Watts, I believe he'll make the team. And Joe, did I say Joe or did I skip right over him? Joe will make the team. And where is Yaya? Oh, looked right over him. Yaya Diaby, obviously going to be the starter. So it'll be Yaya, and I will assume Joe will be the starters at our outside linebacker position. And that is with, Chris Braswell. Probably should put an asterisk on Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Pass rushing scenarios, 3rd downs. Chris Braswell will see plenty of time, and hey, depending on how it goes, may end up being the starter by the end of the season. Now let's move on to secondary, we'll call it, because there's a lot of guys here who play nickel and they're calling him a corner, and play nickel and they're calling him a safety, so we'll just throw it all together. Your starting outside cornerbacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be Jamel Dean and Zion McCollum. I think that's pretty fair and obvious. Bryce Hall, very solid backup there. I think this is just Todd Bowles' guy. Rookie out of Appalachian State, small school. Todd Bowles has talked about him, and you can very much tell that Todd Bowles likes him, despite the injury, despite the lack of really being able to see him over the last couple weeks. I think Todd Bowles just really likes the guy, and I think he's going to make the team. He's shown good things in practice, and what we've needed to see, I think, has been enough for him to make the team. Next, we will go, not Andrew Hayes, Josh Hayes, to make a roster spot there. Been able to see him on special teams. I mean, you're not really going to see him on defense at all. You kind of hope you don't have to see him on defense, but as that gunner on special teams, he provides a ton of value, and he is fantastic at it. So I think he's making the team for that reason. Let's go ahead and get these starting safeties out of the way. Antoine Woodfield Jr. and Jordan Whitehead. Boom, boom. 3rd-round pick, Tyke Smith, making the team. Christian Izzian making the team. Kayvon Merriweather making the team. I think I have one more spot. And that will probably go to the veteran, Tavierre Thomas. 7 years. He's got the veteran experience. I've kind of liked Keenan Isaac. I probably just flip it to the veteran. Keenan Isaac, he's been pretty inconsistent. There's times where I'm like, okay, I see you. And there's times where I'm like, oh, okay. It's tough. I think the Bucs saw some good things from some secondary guys. Didn't even talk about Marcus Banks. He showed some good things. Talked about Isaac. And then looking more on the D-line, the guys that we talked about, between CJ Brewer, Ernest Brown. They got some good looks at some good guys who, very borderline guys that if they don't make this team or the practice squad, you'll probably see them going on another team's practice squad. It was nice to have some really good competition. Sure was. Obviously, specialist. I didn't even talk about that. Chase McLaughlin, Jake Camarda, and Decker, I believe, is the long snapper's name. Triner, who was the guy over the last 5 years, was cut. So they're going with a younger, cheaper option there, which you cannot blame them for doing at all. There are some big decisions that the Bucs have to make still, not big decisions in like the fate of the Buccaneers this season, but the fate of some of these players and their football careers. When you're looking at a Ernest Brown or some of the secondary guys we talked about, there's some massive decisions there. And that's going to be on Jason Light and Coach Todd Bowles to make those and decide who makes these final bubble spots. So that's my prediction. Gave you my 53. I think overall it's going to be a really good team. It's going to be a really fun team to watch at Raymond James Stadium in less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks, I will get to see all of you guys at Raymond James Stadium, and we will be loud, and we will just be having the time of our lives because we've waited months for it. And it is just, it's what we love, isn't it? It is what we love. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment down below your thoughts. If you have any disagreements with what I had to say, happy to hear them out. Please let me know down below. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. Go Bucs, baby. Y'all have a blessed one.